Now that you are ready for your second lesson, let us look back and see what were the most important things you have learned from your first lesson. The most important single thing you have learned in the past few weeks is developing the habit of speaking out with more volume than you used before, and at the same time to speak slowly while you exaggerate your tongue and lip movements. This is the one sure path to clear speech. Speaking slowly and pronouncing every syllable allows you to hear and correct your regionalisms word by word. It allows you to be understood clearly. It helps you to recognize nasality and correct it because you can clearly hear the difference between the pinched nasal sound of speech forced up through your nose and the open sound of speech that comes from your mouth. And finally, pronouncing words syllable by syllable eliminates lazy mouth. I cannot stress too strongly that you must continue to speak slowly, syllable by syllable, with exaggerated mouth movements, all during this month's practice and during the following lessons as well. Gradually, pronouncing every syllable of every word will become natural with you, and your normal rate of speech will take over automatically. Also in your first lesson, you learned to whisper so you could be heard 20 feet away. If you have practiced this exercise every day, you should now be projecting your speech from the front of your mouth in an almost natural way. In fact, if you have consistently practiced your first lesson material, you should now have developed a surprising command of your voice. Now that this has happened, we're going to introduce you to a device that will let you hear your voice more clearly than ever before. While we're on the subject, let us caution you against using anything but the very best possible tape recorder to judge the sound of your voice. Nothing but absolutely professional tape recording equipment will reproduce your voice the way it really is. If you use an inexpensive tape recorder to listen to your voice, you will probably be disappointed, but you will be misled into being disappointed. Now, to hear your voice the way it really sounds under ideal conditions, get a large cardboard box at least 2 feet square and 2 feet deep. If you do not have that large a cardboard box around the house, get one from any grocery store. Cut the top out of the box and sit it on a table in front of your chair. Now sit up close to the box. Lean forward so your face is at least 5 or 6 inches into the box and announce, "Now, from New York, 5 minutes of late world news." Now you have heard how efficiently the box captures your voice and lets you hear how you sound. When you're practicing this lesson, do all of your home practicing into the box to hear your pronunciation more clearly. Arrange the box so light comes into it over your shoulder and prop your written material against the bottom of the box so you can read it without ducking into and out of the box. While we're on the subject of practice, let us say again that all professional announcers practice constantly if they want to advance in their profession. All announcers listen to other announcers critically to study their methods and techniques. When you watch or listen to other announcers, bear in mind that they may appear to be acting naturally and having fun. Actually, they are working to make themselves appear easy and natural. They've gone through just what you're now going through. Sounding natural and appearing natural is not easy. It's hard work. And the way to gain the ability to make your voice and actions appear natural is practice. When you practice into the box, work to listen very carefully. Compare your pronunciation with your recorded lessons and make certain your pronunciation is the same as ours. Sometimes you will have difficulty with a certain word. Work and practice at it, and if you still cannot pronounce it easily, change to another word that means the same thing. Almost all announcers have certain words which give them trouble, and they learn when they're reading over their material before delivering it to change those words to words which are easier to pronounce. Now, before we get into your practice work, let us discuss some personal habits we want to help you develop to assist you in your career. A few of these habits are discussed in your written material, but the 2 most important habits we want to emphasize right here. The most important habit you can develop is to absolutely eliminate any profanity or obscenity from your regular daily speech. Starting this very instant, make up your mind that you will never again, under any circumstances, say one word of profanity. If you've been used to using any swear words or obscenities at all in your ordinary speech, you will soon discover that in spite of this resolve, you will still occasionally find yourself using them. A moment's thought will tell you that if this happens in your daily speech when you do not want it to happen, it would happen sometime when you're on the air. And if it happens once when you're on the air, you'd be out of a job. out of a job that instant, and you'd have a tough time getting the next job with that on your record. So now is the time to get to work on absolutely eliminating profanity and obscenity from your daily speech. The second most important habit you can develop is to eliminate slang from your daily speech. Slang may be part of your normal environment, but it's a shortcut vocabulary and tends to make the listener have less respect for the person who uses it. On radio, this effect is magnified even further. Furthermore, just as with swearing, unless you eliminate slang from your daily speech, it will creep into your announcing. Eliminating slang from your speech does not mean you should speak in formal, stilted English, or that you should use big, ponderous words. It does not mean that you cannot speak in a colorful manner. Listen to the great network announcers, and you will hear them being exciting, colorful, often humorous, but not slangy. If they ever use slang, it is for one single studied effect, not because of an accident. So right this moment, eliminate slang words from your speech. Words like chick, hip, loot, bread, cat, daddy, baby, and the like. Eliminate slang from your talk, even with your closest friends, and you will never be in trouble from using it unexpectedly on the air. Now let us get into your practice work. The first subject we will cover in this lesson is the problem of identifying your radio station on the air. FCC regulations call for every broadcast station, radio or TV, to identify itself by call letter and by the city in which the station is located. The regulations require that this identification be done after every program that lasts 1/2 hour or less, or at the end of programs which are continuous, such as speeches or sermons. During all programs which are easily interrupted, such as programs of recorded music, the station must be identified at the start and at the end of each program, and at least once each 1/2 hour during the program. Station identification announcements can be made in many ways. The announcer may have a recorded announcement which does the identification, or he may announce it himself. You have undoubtedly heard musical groups sing the name and location of a station. Other times you will hear the announcer on the same station give the identification. The recorded identification is perfectly acceptable to the FCC. It is merely a clever way to draw more attention to the station. The FCC regulations merely state that it is necessary to give the call letters and the city, and any method of identifying your station is acceptable as long as it fills those two requirements. Generally, the program director at your station will tell you the way he wants you to do the station breaks. Most stations want them announced in a certain way, often containing a slogan. Many times your program director will let you change the identification in several ways to avoid boring your audience. When you start giving these station breaks for your station, it is smart to write them down in 3 or 4 versions and practice announcing them. This will let you announce them smoothly and firmly without faltering. Almost all station identifications include giving the time. Let us look into the way to tell time on the radio. The best rule is to state the hour first and the minutes afterward. Therefore, you should say it is 9:15 or it is 9:58. You would not say it is 15 after 9 or a quarter after 9 or 2 minutes of 10. If you always tell the time by the hour first and the minutes afterward, you will never sound awkward. The statement will be concise and it will be easy to understand. There is no regulation that you must give the time or that you must identify the time as Central Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. This is done only as a courtesy to your audience. However, many people listen to the radio to find out what time it is, so giving the time every 5 or 10 minutes is a good idea. You would not interrupt a news program or a speech to give the time, or during a concert unless there is a natural interruption, such as intermission. However, on most musical programs, it is a good idea to give the time every 5 minutes or so, if this is acceptable to your program director. Now let us listen to a few different types of station identifications and then practice delivering them yourself. First, do your exercises for a full minute, and then we will begin. Let us imagine that a program has just ended and the time is exactly noon. Listen to this announcement and then imitate it yourself, preferably into the big box on your table if you have already gotten it. Ready? It's 12 noon, and 5 minutes of late news is next on Chicago's big station, WXXX. All right. Another way of making the same station identification is WXXX Chicago. Stay tuned for the news. It's 12 noon. Yet another way you can vary that announcement is, stay tuned for the news, next on WXXX, Chicago's big news station. The time is 12 noon. Now let us imagine that you're in the middle of your disc jockey program. The time is 11:30 and you must identify your station. You might say, you're listening to the Bill Anderson Show on Chicago's big music station, WXXX. At the tone signal, the time will be exactly 11:30. Remember, you do not need to give the time for a station identification. It is merely a courtesy. On the other hand, when you give the time during other parts of your program, it does not need to be a station identification announcement, so you need not give the name of the station and the city. During the same program we described above, you might say, that was Sly Stewart's new hit, Never Never. The time is now 11:10 on the Bill Anderson Show. Next we will hear Carmen McRae's Summertime, after this word from our sponsor. Now that you are familiar with station identification requirements, we are going to discuss some special situations which are bound to happen to you as an announcer. Study this portion very carefully because you must learn how to handle them. First, let us suppose that you must cough, or that something gets in your throat and you have to clear your throat. What do you do? The answer is it depends on what you're doing at the time. If you're sitting down playing records, then you will have a microphone cutoff switch in front of you in the announce booth. You merely turn your microphone off and clear your throat or cough before you turn it back on again. Make no mention of it to your audience because they did not hear it. If you're in a larger studio, your microphone generally has a small switch called a cough box, and all you do is push the switch button and it turns your microphone off. However, if you're making an announcement, or if you're in a situation such as a discussion program where you have no cough box switch, place your hand about 1 inch from the microphone. Don't touch it, and quickly turn your head away from the microphone and cough in the opposite direction from the microphone. The chances are the microphone did not pick up the sound. Then quickly and quietly say, "Excuse me," and continue with no further mention of the incident. Let us take another situation. What if you're conducting a disc jockey program and you're playing records on 2 turntables and accidentally introduce one record and suddenly notice that the other record is about to be played? What do? Don't say, "Oh, I made a mistake," or "Oh, I mean such and such." Errors like this must be handled smoothly. This is the mark of a professional. You can handle this by saying, "Here's number 10 on this week's Big Top 40, Park Davis's Real Big One, I Love You." At this point, you suddenly see that the wrong record is about to play. So you adjust yourself and add, "But before we play big number 10 for the week, here's lovely Helen Francis with her offering of More Than You Know." There are other ways of handling the situation. You could say, "While we're waiting for the orchestra to tune up for Mr. Davis, let's hear Helen Francis's More Than You Know." Actually, you can say any number of things, but the point is not to be caught in your mistake, but to make it appear as though you did it on purpose. It is good practice to write out 4 or 5 different phrases to cover this situation, and practice them so that you do not stumble over the right words when this situation comes up. Another situation that can come up on a musical program is that you're about to play a Bobby Freeman 45 RPM recording, but the turntable is set at 33 1/3, and the record plays very slowly. You have to correct it. Simply stop the recording and announce, "Gee, Bobby, you're in bad voice today. Want to try it again?" While you're talking, you adjust the turntable speed and start the record over. Or you could say, "Beautiful ballad, Bobby, but let's pick up the tempo a bit, eh?" And again, adjust the turntable speed while you're talking. You can see there are many ways to cover the mistake. Just never say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had the turntable at the wrong speed," or anything like that. The object is to sound as smooth and professional as possible. A third situation is one in which the phonograph needle breaks and you cannot play the record at all until you can put it on the other turntable. You have to keep announcing while you change the record, but you certainly don't want to say, "Gee, the needle broke," or anything of the sort. You can go back to saying, "While we're waiting for the orchestra to tune up, let's listen to Jimmy Dean," and play the record that's already on the second turntable. Or you can talk for a few seconds while you switch the record you have announced to the turntable which is working. This only takes 8 to 10 seconds, so you needn't say much. You can simply say, "Before Park Davis begins, let us remind you that you're listening to the Bill Anderson Show. The time is 11:22. Now here's Park." If you're a bit too new to count on ad-libbing successfully in a situation like this, Be prepared with a few short public service commercials which every station is prepared to broadcast for the Army, the Navy, or some charity or other nonprofit organization. Keep a few of these short commercials on hand, and you can announce them while almost any physical difficulty with a record or a turntable is taken care of. Other emergency situations develop, such as interviewing guests who talk too long, having the entire station transmitter break down, interrupting an entire program to announce an emergency bulletin, and the like. We will deal with these situations in future lessons to avoid burdening you with too much detail now. At this point, we want to go into a vocal exercise which will make you strongly aware of emphasis. Changing the emphasis on certain words in a sentence can change the entire meaning of a sentence. We wish to discuss emphasis right now because it is extremely vital, and when you master the use of voice emphasis, it will add color and power to your announcing, particularly announcing of commercials. Before we go further in this discussion, we want you to listen to changing the emphasis of the words in one simple sentence. I want a big red apple. Now let's try it this way. I want a big red apple. Here's a third way. I want a big red apple. A fourth way. I want a big red apple. A fifth way. I want a big red apple. And finally, I want a big red apple. You can see how the change of emphasis changed the entire meaning of the sentence in every instance. You also could see that emphasis in announcing doesn't call for loud volume or shouting. It is created by your tone of voice, your lengthening of a word. Now, the interesting thing about emphasis is that almost everyone uses emphasis to a certain extent in his regular speech. Not as firmly or as definitely as is called for in announcing, but any person who is interesting to listen to, or who has something interesting to say, automatically emphasizes the most important parts of his conversation. In announcing, however, most of the time you will be reading material you have not prepared. This will happen almost every time you announce a commercial, for example, and therefore you will not know what parts to emphasize unless you have prepared yourself beforehand. This is a good example of what we meant earlier when we said good announcers seem to be relaxed and easy and natural, but they must work to appear that way. Now, the best way to prepare yourself to deliver the proper emphasis in a commercial or in continuity is to read the material beforehand, decide on the most important parts, and underline in pencil the words you wish to emphasize. Then read it aloud, using the emphasis you have decided upon, making notes on the margin where you want to remind yourself to create a certain mood or emotion. If you want to make changes in your notes or underlined words, you can go ahead and change them when you have done your marking in pencil. Then read the commercial a few more times until you can emphasize the right words without pausing or making the commercial sound awkward. At this point, we suggest that you take your written material and read commercial number 1 twice. Read it the first time to see what the selling message is, and the second time to begin to feel out where the important words lie, which will need emphasis. Do not mark the commercial, however. Now I am going to deliver the commercial. As I announce it, go ahead and underline in your written material all the words I emphasize. Make notes in the margin describing to yourself the mood I create and areas where I change the mood, if any. Feel like leaving your cares behind and taking off for a tropical island? Then you'd better enter Crunchy Corn Chips Trip to Paradise sweepstakes. Win a week in Tahiti for 2. Nothing to write, guess, or figure out. Nothing to buy. Just pick up your entry forms at your grocer's Crunchy display and enter today. While you're at it, pick up a bag of delicious Crunchy Corn Chips. Your ticket to munching paradise every day. See your grocer today. You can see how a marked-up commercial like this can help you deliver the commercial in a strong, consistent manner hours after you have originally read it. Now I'm going to deliver the commercial again. When I have finished, go ahead and announce the commercial yourself with the help of your marked script. Try to imitate as closely as you can my delivery and my pronunciation. Feel like leaving your cares behind and taking off for a tropical island? Then you'd better enter Crunchy Corn Chips Trip to Paradise sweepstakes. Win a week in Tahiti for 2. Nothing to write, guess, or figure out. Nothing to buy. Just pick up your entry forms at your grocer's crunchy display and enter today. While you're at it, pick up a bag of delicious crunchy corn chips. Your ticket to munching paradise every day. See your grocer today. Let us go right ahead with our commercial practice. On this side of your recorded lesson, I will deliver each of the remaining commercials just once. I want you to read each commercial before I deliver it, then listen to my delivery and mark your commercial while I am announcing it, and then listen to my delivery of the commercial once more before you try your own hand at announcing it. Ready? Read commercial number 2 to yourself. Now. Now that you have read it, listen to my delivery and mark your script while you listen. Afterward, replay this section and then deliver the commercial yourself. Are your tires wearing down at the heels? Are they wearing more on one side than the other, or wearing out in spots? Could be a sign that your wheels need balancing, or your car needs a front-end alignment. You can save on expensive repairs if you visit your car dealers now for a Sentry maintenance checkup. He'll give your car a complete tune-up, rotate the tires, check the front end and brakes, and lubricate the chassis for less cost than you'd imagine. See your car dealer today. It takes a while to get used to putting enough emphasis on the most important parts of a commercial, but practice makes perfect. Now read commercial number 3, and be ready to mark your script when you hear my delivery. After you have marked your script, replay this section, and then deliver the commercial yourself. If you wake up in an early morning fog, stomach a little sour, head dull and achy, fresh up fast with Ziprin, the instant alkalizer seltzer. Ziprin sweeps away morning fuzziness, gives you a sparkling fresh feeling all over. Open an individual foil-sealed packet of Ziprin into a glass of water. Drink the cool, bubbling glassful. In an instant, your stomach feels sweeter, your head feels fresher. Ziprin is the bright, clean way to sweep out morning fogs. Get Ziprin, Z-I-P-R-I-N, Ziprin, the instant alkalizer seltzer, today. This sort of practice is fun for some people from the start, and for a lot of others it's pure hard work. However, the ability to control the emphasis of your speech to create the exact effect you want is one of the main weapons of the great announcers. This practice will give you greater control of your speaking effectiveness than almost any other exercise you will do. Now go ahead and read commercial number 4, and then, once again, mark your script while I deliver it. Play it again, and then announce it yourself. Don't miss the 3-star celebration at your Essex dealers now. See him today and choose your sale-priced Hawk, Pure Lane, or Constellation. All beauties, all lively. Hawk 6, king of the compacts. Pure Lane, offering big car room without big car cost. Constellation, the luxury Essex with optional lightning power. Take your pick during your Essex dealer's 3-star celebration. You'll see why he calls it a celebration when you discover how much you'll save. See your Essex dealer today. Let's go right ahead. Read commercial number 5, then mark your script while I deliver it, then play my delivery again before you announce it yourself. Next time you fire up your barbecue, try something really new. Get a bottle of Tokyo Teriyaki Barbecue Marinade. Then sprinkle it on anything you plan to grill. It gives your chicken and steaks a sensational new flavor, more tangy and glowing than anything you've ever enjoyed before. Perfect on chops, spare ribs, anything you've ever barbecued. Look for Tokyo Teriyaki Barbecue Marinade today at your market. It's ready to use, no fuss, no muss. Tokyo Teriyaki Barbecue Marinade. Read the last commercial, then mark it while I announce it, then play it again before you announce it yourself. If you ever made a sauce that turned lumpy in the pan, you'll like Aunt Martha's sauces. They don't turn lumpy in the pan or anywhere else. There are 3 Aunt Martha's sauces you'll want to try. Aunt Martha's cheese sauce, Aunt Martha's hollandaise sauce, and Aunt Martha's basic white sauce. All of Aunt Martha's sauces can be heated and reheated without separating. Aunt Martha's sauces are great for all creamed dishes, and Aunt Martha's basic white sauce can can be transformed with easy additions to fit any gourmet dish. Get Aunt Martha's sauces today at your favorite food store. Now let us cover the subject of newscasts. First and foremost, a newscast consists of facts. It is not our opinion of anything. A newscast is primarily a factual description of what has happened and what is happening. There is all the difference in the world between a newscast and a program of comment on the news. When commentators discuss the news, they are giving their opinions from the authority of their stature as recognized experts, usually in the political field. A great newscaster, however, sticks to the facts, but arranges and delivers them in a fascinating, entertaining manner. In this lesson, we are going to go into our first newscast, which we want you to practice faithfully for a month. At that time, you should be able to imitate the pace and tone of a professional newscast. A typical newscast consists of 1. An introduction to the news, 2. Delivery of the news headlines, 3. A commercial, sometimes omitted, 4. The body of the news, 5. A commercial, 6. A kicker, a minor but interestingly unusual story with a twist, 7. The weather report, and 8. The closing of the newscast. Now we are going to deliver a complete newscast. The first time round, just listen. Then prepare yourself just as you would in your job as an announcer. The first thing you should do is to read over the commercials that appear in the newscast. Then listen to my delivery of the commercials and mark your written script. Then listen to my commercial delivery again and practice them aloud. After that, prepare the rest of the newscast in the same way, listening to my emphasis, marking your script, making notes on the pace and mood of different sections of the newscast. Are you ready? It's 12 noon, and 5 minutes of late news is next on Chicago's big station, WXXX. First, the headlines. Cape Kennedy scientists expect to launch the Ranger 7 spacecraft today after a one-day delay. South Vietnamese premier says his country would not need U.S. approval to attack North Vietnam. A live bomb was found this morning in London's financial district, only 10 feet from a subway tunnel. Authorities in Rochester, New York, appear confident the racial violence which prevailed there over the weekend has ended. The details in a moment. First, this word. Thinking about dieting? How about a full day's supply of delicious new Quick Diet, absolutely free? Just buy 2 handy 4-packs of Smith's Quick Diet at your food store. Then Smith's will refund to you by mail $1.20. The details are on every 4-pack. So if you're thinking about dieting, try Smith's new Quick Diet and see for free why it's Chicago's favorite 900-calorie diet. Make Quick Diet your steady diet and watch the pounds melt away. Get 2 4-packs today to start you on your way and get your $1.20 back in the mail. And now, the news. Space officials are checking out the Atlas Agena rocket they hope to use to send a Ranger moon probe aloft today. Blast-off time for the television camera-carrying spacecraft is set for midday. The Ranger probe is supposed to send back close-up pictures of the lunar surface. The shot was originally scheduled for yesterday, but mechanical delays forced its postponement. Premier Khan of South Vietnam says his government feels free to attack communist North Vietnam with or without U.S. approval. Khan told newsmen this morning in Saigon there are no differences between his government and the U.S. over the issue. As he put it, the American government and the Vietnamese government have the same objectives, to help the Vietnamese people in their struggle. A bomb disposal squad is working on a live 250-pound bomb left over from World War II. The bomb was found this morning in the heart of London's financial district. It was smoking when the disposal squad arrived on the scene after a tractor uncovered it only 10 feet from a subway tunnel. National Guardsmen and police still are patrolling Rochester, New York this morning, but city officials feel the worst of recent racial violence is over. The city passed its first peaceful night since Negroes began clashing with police last Friday. New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller toured the Negro district yesterday. He said the problem now appears to be one of keeping law and order and getting back to normal. More news and the weather in a moment. Here's a message to you mothers and dads who are worried about your children's progress in school. There's a way to give your children an extra advantage in their climb toward success. a way to improve their grades this year and to give them a head start on next year's classes. Give them the Book of Information, the reference set that has meant success for millions of youngsters because it teaches them to teach themselves. See for yourself. Write for your free 24-page sample. Send your name and address to Book, Department X, Box 1, Grand Central Station, New York City. In other news, the police in Dubuque, Iowa, are searching for a young hold-up man, or rather, a hold-up boy. The boy, about 11 years old, robbed 4 6-year-old girls at knife point. His take, $1.25. Today's weather in Greater Chicago reads fair and clearing with a slight chance of rain late this evening. Today's high temperature will be 72 degrees. WXXX temperature now is 71. You've been listening to the latest news from Chicago's big station, WXXX, where you hear the big news first, on the hour, every hour. This sample newscast is typical of most radio stations' format. During this month, we want you to work over this newscast as we discussed at the start of it, and practice it until you can match the pace and the mood and the emphasis of our delivery. During this month, we also want you to listen carefully to your local radio station's newscasts and notice how they handle their regular 5-minute news. Now we're going to get into the pronunciation lesson for this month. Practice it the same way you practiced your first pronunciation lesson. That is, get your practice material out, listen to my pronunciation of each word, and then read the word silently before you pronounce it yourself. When you are pronouncing each word, speak carefully and slowly with exaggerated mouth and lip movements to correct any nasality and to let you hear carefully the exact sounds of each syllable. Do this practicing in the box on your table. Are you ready? Caballero, cabaret, cadaver, Cairo, Cairo, cajole, Calais, Calcutta, California, calliope, caloric, camouflage, Canaan, canapé, Canberra, candelabra, candid, canine, cant, cantaloupe, canton, canton, capillary, capricious, car, carbine, cardiac, careen, Caribbean, caribou, caricature, Carnegie, Carolina, Carolinian, carousel, carte blanche, cassava, cashew, cashmere, Caspian, casserole, cast, Castile, Castilian, catalyst, catastrophe, catastrophic, ketchup, Catholic, Catholicism, ketchup, Caucasian, caviar, Cecil, cellist, cello, censure, census, centennial, centrifugal, ceramic, cerebellum, cerebral, Ceylon, chaff, chagrin, chaise, chambray, chameleon, chamois, champion, chancery, chandelier, chaos, chaotic, chapeau, charade, charlatan, Charlemagne, chartreuse, chasm, chassis, chaste, chateau, chattel, chauffeur, cheddar, chef, Chekhov, Anton, chemise, chenille, checker, cheroot, cherub, Chevrolet, Cheyenne, Chiang Kai-shek, Chicago, Chihuahua, Chippewa, chiropodist, chiropractor, Chloe, chlorophyll, chocolate, Choctaw, choleric, cholesterol, coral, chorale, choreography, Chu En Lai, Christendom, chrome, Churchill, cigar, cigarette, citadel, citrate, ciudad, Ciudad Trujillo, clairvoyance, clandestine, clansman, clarion, clemency, clergy, clerical, cliché, clientele, clique, coadjutant, coadjutor, coaxial, coxswain, cocoon, coerce, coffee, cognac, coherent, coiffure, colic, colleen, college, collegian, collision, collusion, colon, colonel, colonnade, colony, Colorado, Colosseum, colossus, column, combat, combat, combine, comedian, comedienne, comfortable, comment, commentary, commentator, commercial, commissar, commissariat, communication, communism, communist, comparable, compatriot, compel, compensate, compensatory, competence, complacence, complement, complete, complexion, compose, comprehend, controller, concave, concept, concern, concert, concerto, concise, conclusive, concoct, conquered, concourse, concubine, concurrent, condolence, conducive, confer, conference, confess, confetti, confiscatory, congeal, congratulate, Congress, congressional, congruent, conjecture, connoisseur, conquer, conscience, conscious, consensus, consign, consignee, consigner, consommé, constabulary, Constantinople, consul, contemplate, contiguous, contraband, contradictory, contralto, contrary, contribute, contributory, control, controller, controversial, conversant, convey, Cooper, Copacabana, Copernicus, coquette, coral, core, corral, correlate, corsage, cotillion, cougar, coup, coup de grace, coup d'etat, coupe, coupon, courier, covenant, cowardice, crayon, credence, credo, criterion, Croatian, croupier, crux, Cuban, cuisine, cumulative, cupboard, cutlass, cyclotron, cynicism, check. That finishes our pronunciation for lesson number 2. Just as with your first lesson, you're not going to be able to change your pronunciation of all these words overnight. It's going to take constant practice. While you're doing this pronunciation lesson in the next month, at least once or twice a week, we want you to go over the pronunciation exercise in lesson 1 as well, to make certain you have mastered the pronunciation of those words. If you get tired of doing the pronunciation lesson, skip a day or two. But remember that it is an exercise to correct nasality, correct regionalisms in your speech, to correct lazy mouth, and to acquaint you with many words which you will be using often in your career as an announcer. From now until your next lesson, we want you to study carefully every section of Lesson 2 and to go back over Lesson 1 several times. There is a considerable amount of information in the written lesson material which does not appear on your recorded lesson. Study it carefully, especially the glossary of broadcast words which will help you sound like a professional when you are talking to men in the business and when you go after your first professional job. In the written material, you will see that we suggest you visit a local radio station for 2 or 3 hours and how to go about it. Let us remind you here, if you haven't already done so after a week, to make a phone call and arrange that meeting now. During the next month, we want you to continue your ah and exercises every time you start to practice, to use your practice box constantly, and to follow the exercise and practice program outlined at the end of your written material. Keep up the good work. Practice carefully, and you will be ready for the new techniques and new situations we will cover together in lesson number 3.